Welcome to Orlando Magic Live. I'm Charles King here with the Magic insider, Brian Schmitz, to talk about the Orlando Magic for the next 20, 30 minutes or so. And Brian asked the fans to send him questions that he will address, and we're going to try to answer all those questions that were sent in today, and also maybe talk a little bit about All-Star Weekend and the state of the team. Maybe let's start with the state of the team really quick, then we'll get to the Twitter questions. 30 games left. They lose a heartbreaker to the San Antonio Spurs last night. 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. And we've seen this before.
We've seen this movie? Is that what
you're
saying? Same song, second verse. For Magic fans, this is just torture. I mean, it really is a team that's good enough to get a 14-point lead on the Spurs, good enough to get a 20-point lead on Charlotte. I mean, we've seen this, but they cannot hold leads. And then, right? Well, they did everything for the Grizzlies that could help them win that game. So this is where this team is right now. They just have to, in this last stretch, and I think, Charles, they're going to have to go, to make the playoffs, they're going to have to go 20-10, 18-12, maybe at the very least. And basically what you have to do is you have to duplicate that early run they had this season when they were 19-13.
The schedule's going to be way tougher,
to have
though.
A shot.
The schedule now versus the schedule when they were having success in Denver.
No question.
As we mentioned before we started here, 2 games against Golden State and games against some of the tougher teams in the league. 23-29 right now, 11th place in the East. The next game is next Friday versus Dallas. And we have the All-Star Weekend coming up.
Right.
I want to say Blake
You
Griffin.
had Blake Griffin in the mind, didn't you? He did. See?
We'll get to that.
Channel Blake.
We'll get to that soon enough. Aaron Gordon in the dunk contest on Saturday night, and Elfrid Payton and Mario Hezonja in the Rising Stars Challenge. So there are some Magic players involved in All-Star Weekend, just not in the main event on Sunday. Now, the trade deadline, that's February 18th. That's where Magic fans' mind is at right now. And a lot of the questions that you got on Twitter were related to that. So let's start going through some of the Twitter questions and try to address some of the things people are interested in. And if we feel like they missed anything, we'll touch on that too. So we're going to go full screen with these questions so the people watching can also see. First question is related to what it would take to trade one of the core players. So you're talking about Harris, Vucevic, Oladipo. Get the sense from what I've heard the last few days that these guys could be available if the trade is right. What do you think it's going to take for the Magic to part ways with core players?
Well, first, everybody on that roster is available. Now, really, Nick Vucevic has the most value. He's the best asset, and it would take a lot to pry Nick Vucevic away. Now, he is among the core players. These are the core guys that Rob Hennigan has assembled since Dwight Howard left. Nick Vucevic, Tobias Harris, Evan Fournier, Mario Hezonja, Victor Oladipo, and Elfrid Payton, and Aaron Gordon. I think I got them all right. So that is your core right there. Now, to trade one or two or both these guys in some type of package, you would need back a very good veteran player. Now, Jeff Teague from Atlanta, the point guard, apparently he's available because the Hawks like Dennis Schroeder, and Teague's also making a lot more money. So I would suspect, and this is tough because a lot of people like Elfrid Payton, but it doesn't look like he's ever going to be a great shooter, and it's tough to give up on a kid at that age. But Jeff Teague, proven player, all-star game last season, and I think the Magic would make that leap. Whether the Hawks want Payton, and the talk is that Victor Oladipo is the guy. Now, I don't know if you trade Victor for Jeff Teague straight up. Maybe you would because you have wing players, Evan Fournier and Mario Hezonja, who could play that spot if you did deal Oladipo.
It's a tough situation the Magic are in the point guard position because it's Elfrid Payton. C.J. Watson's been out, even though I think there's some expectations that Watson's going to return after the break. And then they've been using Shabazz Napier, which hasn't worked out great. But if you bring in a Jeff Teague, an all-star caliber player at point guard, that really is going to throw off the dynamic of this team where Elfrid Payton has been the starting point guard since he's come into the league. It really puts him in a position where he's now coming off of the bench. So that has potential to be pretty awkward.
Awkward or not, that's how you get better, and that has to be the game plan for Rob Hennigan, whether he likes it or not. Now, Hennigan would obviously prefer to keep this core, grow this core, and that's where you get your sustainability, where you're good for a lot of years. You can forget about the Oklahoma City model. That is a freak show. Nobody gets those kind of lottery picks and is able to be good for that. You just can't compare it to that. So you have to, at this point, when you're in your fourth season of your rebuild and it really hasn't gone up like this, you need to bundle these assets, and yes, they become player favorites, but don't get attached to these guys too closely, because when the move's there, you have to make it, and that's the only way that you can really make this team better and push it toward the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think fans are really starting to feel that now, because I think fans have had a belief that if the team didn't turn the corner, that the bundling of these assets for another player was going to come.
Sure.
It hasn't come to this point, and after December, when the Magic were playing well, you thought maybe that wasn't going to happen. But now here we are after a rough January. Trade deadline is a week from today, and it really sounds like something's going to happen. Do we have the ability to get some Twitter questions up? Trouble saying it. Twitter questions. So here's one from MMA_Mexican, who tweeted us on our last show. So thanks for sending us a second question. He wants to know, do you think Orlando should start Fournier over Harris? We also got another tweet from a guy who says, do you think Fournier is more of a 2 or a 3? And I think that kind of is a similar type question. Look, Harris was out. The Magic won 2 games against a good team in Atlanta and played San Antonio tough with Harris, the highest paid player on the team, out. So I think that's what's got some people thinking.
Michael, that is a very astute question, and it's fair. But what you have there is you probably have a better ball movement, maybe even a better scorer at times, because Fournier can shoot the 3 and he can drive.
A little bit more of a playmaker.
But you lose size.
Definitely.
So you're playing small ball, not an altogether bad thing, as we saw that with Fournier in the lineup, they beat Atlanta twice. Now, a little bit unfair to Tobias Harris, who has not quite taken that step this season that we thought he might make. But then again, is he playing within Scott Skiles' system? Is he doing what he's told to do instead of trying to break out and go on his own? Because that is the death knell for this team, when guys try to do it themselves. And they're not quite of that caliber, an all-star caliber, to get it done. So I like Fournier, and it's very intriguing with Fournier as trade bait, because he's not making a lot of money. He's still on his rookie deal, which is about 2.5. So, you're going to have to get a very good player back, and the salaries, it's going to have to take 4 guys really to make that deal work. Now, the Magic, Rob Hennigan has already gone on the record and said, we like Evan, we want him back, and he said the same thing with Tobias Harris. Yeah. The caveat, of course, was that if the Magic could have gotten Paul Millsap, an all-star, in the last free agent season, they would have waved goodbye to Tobias Harris. So everything is kind of pending, but you're not going to let Evan Fournier walk, because he'll be a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
So what do you pay him? That's the question. That's really the question. How about Tobias got $16 million? What do you give Evan Fournier?
And it's believed that Fournier rejected a certain amount with the extension talks.
As Harris did.
In the, 10 to 12 range? Or do we know?
It depends on what you believe, but that would seem about right, maybe a little high if it's 12. Mm-hmm. But the way salaries are going to escalate now because of the new TV money, Tobias Harris at $16 million, we're just going to shrug our shoulders, because stars, and maybe not even all stars, are going to get $20 million. and the best players are going to get $25 to $30 million.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a shock to the system for the NBA, but they've been making that in baseball for a while now. $30 million a season. I think Pujols, he was a $25 to $30 million guy in the back end of his contract now. Michael Jordan's the only guy that's ever made $30 million, and that was a balloon type deal, sort of a payback for all the years that we kind of lowballed you, Michael. So it's going to be interesting to see where these salaries go.
Yeah, the TV money kicks in next year, and it's going to double after that.
Oh my!
So it's going to get crazy. So $16 million, especially in the third and fourth year of Tobias's deal, is going to seem like a pretty good deal. All right, so let's go to our next question we have here. Brian, who do you see as the odd man out in Orlando right now? And I got to tell you, the name that I hear as we reach, and I assume he's talking about the trade deadline. Maybe he's talking about playing time, but let's assume he means trade deadline. The name that I hear the most is Victor Oladipo. Does it have anything to do with Oladipo becoming eligible for an extension after this year? And whether or not the Magic want to be forced into that decision?
It could. But Victor, remember, if you're talking about a guy who was a starter and then Scott Skiles said, "I want you to come off the bench," if you look at that as a demotion, but then now he's back, so is he the odd man out or not?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Victor's a vital part of this team. I would say the odd man out right now is Channing Frye. Because the way they want to play. I mean, obviously with Frye as a pick and pop, as one of those stretch fours, you get him to spread the floor a little bit. But now, since they're going smaller with Fournier, it'll be interesting to see what Channing Frye's role, and he does have some value in the league. And it doesn't surprise me at all that his name is in trade rumors.
Yeah, the more the NBA goes to a small ball approach, the stretch four, someone like Channing Frye who can space the floor, shoot threes at the power forward position becomes increasingly valuable. And I think you can look across the league and you can see there's a lot of teams that could use a player like him. He's not necessarily Ryan Anderson, but a cheaper version of Ryan Anderson. All right, let's get back on another Twitter question, see what we have next. All right. Skiles said, let me give credit to @RCognition first. Skiles said he thinks Fournier is a shooting guard. I think we already kind of addressed that, yet he still plays much differently better at small forward. Is he small forward?
Well, the larger question with Fournier is, can he be consistent? I don't care whether he plays shooting guard or small forward.
Yeah.
Evan just has to be consistent, and that is something that he hasn't done. I mean, the other night against the Spurs, he was terrific, 28 points, but there have been games where he just is he's just not there. I mean, he 8, 9 points, and with a young player, that's not unusual. But what the Magic are looking to see, as they look to see with Tobias, can you be consistent over a long haul, over long stretches? So I think maybe Fournier is getting there, and he's had a up and down because first he was starting, then he's on the bench, and now he's back as a starter. But this is kind of what you got with a team mostly of role players.
And is he a shooting guard? Is he a small forward? I mean, I think that depends on the matchup. It depends on. He can play both.
Yeah,
and
he's 6'7". He can, depending on the matchups at small forward, where he's facing bigger guys, obviously, and then a shooting guard where he's facing quicker guys.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a Ginobili, that's kind of who he's patterned his game after, and he kind of fits that role because he can shoot the three and he can drive.
Rolling right along, let's take a look at another question that we have. We got quite a few, so I don't feel like we have a shortage. Here we go. Magic Insider, how does sewing a woman in half trick actually work? You get what he's doing there, right? Got a Magic question was the question you asked. You didn't use the word Orlando Magic, so he thought he'd make a funny.
Let me tell you how this works.
Do you know how it works?
Well, I have an ex that can tell you how it works. No. Obviously, the one part of the box is fake, okay? All right, so they're really not sawing somebody in half. But, after the trade deadline, maybe somebody might want to put Rob Hennigan in that box and see how that trick works.
I can do card tricks. You know card tricks?
No.
Maybe I'll show you one.
All right,
later
let's
on.
see it.
All right, let's go to the next question. What else do we have, Sean?
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, I'll fill the space while we wait for the next question. All right, so just quickly, while he's pulling that up, what do you think the chances are that the Magic make a deal? If you had to put percentage odds on it before the trade deadline.
There you go. I would put 100% that they're trying.
Okay.
I would put 25% that they'll pull something off.
Wow, okay. All right, so here's a question. Are Skiles Hennigan a package deal, or could Hennigan be fired and Skiles retained? How untouchable is Hennigan? So we have a question about Coach Scott Skiles and the general manager for the Magic, Rob Hennigan. Interesting how he talks about that maybe he views them as having opposing strategies. Do you see it that way?
Well, it's a good question. It really is. Obviously, Hennigan's been here longer. He's been here 3 years. He's the architect of this rebuild. So right now,
I don't know if that gets you credit now.
Well, it may not, but the Magic fired Jacques Vaughn last season as their coach because they felt that he wasn't getting the most out of the team, that this was a better team than what it showed, okay? So you go get another coach, a very experienced coach, a Mr. Goodwrench type guy who fixes broken teams, all right? Fan favorite, played here, they love him, marching band came out, Scott Skiles is here, all right. So to me, you're very happy with your coach. This is on the players, and this is on the guy who acquired the players originally, and that's Rob Hennigan. This is on the guy who has to make this team better by making deals, signing free agents. And if this doesn't get done, I would say that Hennigan, yes, is on the hot seat because somebody's got to take the fall. That's what happens in sports. You got to have a fall guy. And I think they have to establish themselves with a coach right now. I don't think you can keep replacing a coach every 2 years, although that seems to be the trend in the NBA now. But I think the ownership loves Skiles, and Alex Martin certainly has a deep regard for Skiles too. So I think Rob is right now probably in the crosshairs.
I think that's very similar to another question that we got. Since we're talking about Hennigan and Skiles and how that's impacting the trade deadline, I saw where we had one tweet that was asking whether or not it was likely or possible that the Magic could end up making a more short-sighted trade in order just to get a veteran piece and maybe not get the most value out of the trade.
Well,
because they feel the need to make a deal.
Yeah, I think it depends on who that player is. I think that's really what it comes down to. What kind of player are you getting for us to give up some pieces while, maybe it'll hurt for a while. Can this star that we get, and it's going to have to be a star quality player. There's no question about that. Can this star quality player make us better, and can he recruit another guy? That's what this is all about right now. Because if Paul Millsap would have come here last summer, who's going to come next when the team's when he supposedly would make the team better? Would another free agent now come over to Orlando because we see that we got something going here? They're winning. They got Paul Millsap. That's a pretty good piece. And whatever pieces they have left, Vucevic, Millsap, but of course that didn't work. But it's the same kind of idea. Al Horford, Millsap's running mate in Atlanta. Will Al Horford make us better, even though we might take a step back right now? Can we get more veteran players in here because Al's here? Yeah. So, yes, I think you would have to do it depending on the player.
The Magic are certainly active, and the thing that I think has the most fans excited is that the Blake Griffin rumors continue to go on, and I think it's pretty widely believed that there's definitely some communication between the Magic and the Clippers. There's certainly an effort, and I think what gives people hope is there's the possibility of some interest on LA's part in a deal. What are your opinions on this?
All right. I get this all the time, so it's fun. So I don't give an answer. Usually I say in email, or if I see somebody out in the street and they ask me, okay, what do you want to give up for Blake Griffin? All right, that always causes a huge pause. Well, we could give him, okay. Do the Magic have enough to get Blake Griffin? I don't know why they'd even trade him anyway. Unless he punches Doc Rivers, you're not going to trade him. All right, could you give them, okay, here's one I threw out the other day. Could you give them Vucevic? Now, I know they already have a center, DeAndre Jordan. For Blake, give them Oladipo, Vucevic. Doc Rivers loves them both. Doc then trades Jordan to Atlanta for Horford. They get back Horford, Vucevic, Oladipo. There you go. How's that one?
There's three. Well, that sounds a little complicated.
See, I mean, you could do this all day. We could play fantasy basketball all day.
You could argue that the Clippers, though, they're playing
not a
better.
bad deal.
They're playing better without Griffin.
But still, he's a horse, man. This is what we've been talking about for the large portion of this show, is you have to have a star. The Magic don't have a star. It's why they're losing a lot of these games. San Antonio is a perfect example. San Antonio has Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge down the stretch. They have two horses. Oklahoma City, they beat the Magic twice in overtime in the last minute because they have Durant and Westbrook.
Yeah.
Okay? So to acquire a star. So now you're asking the LA Clippers to give up a star, and maybe sometimes behind the scenes, maybe there's some difficulties. Bad guy, bad chemistry. Okay. That's why I threw that out there. Oladipo, Vucevic, you send Jordan to Atlanta, you bring back Horford to the Clippers. That's not a bad team. Now, is it a better team without Blake Griffin? Who knows? But what the Clippers need probably is some more role players.
Yeah.
I mean, some of their guys are getting old. Obviously, Pierce, Crawford. But I tell you, you got to think long and hard to give up Blake Griffin.
Yeah, and whether or not the Clippers decide to do that, especially with the playoffs around the corner, and it's such a bold move to make when you're a team that is in the discussion for an NBA title. Do you trade really your franchise guy at the trade deadline? And if there is going to be a trade, it's probably going to be at the last minute, right? That's how these things kind of come down.
Sometimes, right? Yeah. Or now, don't forget this summer. You can still make deals this summer, and that's where some of these could happen too. Because now you get another 30-game look at a guy, and you get perhaps how they'll do in the playoffs. And that's the word around the LA Clippers is if they don't do better in the playoffs, then let's talk about maybe blowing up this team. The Atlanta Hawks, they got to pay Al Horford $140 million. Yeah. Where are they going? Do they want to do that with a 30-year-old power forward?
And it seems like they don't.
So there's a lot of dynamics at work, and you still have the summer to make deals.
Well, everything regarding the trade deadline will be determined by next Thursday. So next week on the show, we'll talk about what the Magic did or didn't do and whether it was a good or a bad thing and get Brian's thoughts on that. So anticipate a fun show next Thursday here on Orlando Magic Live. Not sure about the time yet. The trade deadline's at 3, so maybe we need to bump the show back in the afternoon a little bit so we have a definitive answer. Again, the NBA All-Star break, it's this weekend. Look for Elfrid Payton and Mario Hezonja on Saturday night in the Rising Stars Challenge, and Aaron Gordon in the dunk contest also on Saturday night.
And thanks for the questions from Twitter. We appreciate them. Hope we answered them. Maybe not, but thanks for firing away.
We gave it a try, and thanks for the snarky song woman in half question that we got too. And the Magic next game will be next Friday against Dallas at home. For Brian Schmitz, I'm Charles King. Thanks for watching.